people circled around one thing that I was trying to avoid to talk about, because I made this one video that I thought would explain things. Turns out I didn't do a very good job explaining things. And I also don't have a ton of bad things to say about New York, so it just doesn't make sense to people when I talk about it. So if you just follow me here on the YouTubes, you are probably kind of in the dark. If you follow me on Twitter, well, I tell everyone everything on the Twitters first. And I kind of, in the past couple months was like, hey, I'm moving. I started selling off a lot of stuff, and Twitter kind of got the hint that I am no longer staying in New York. So I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, spent the first 21 years of my life here, and then I moved on to Nashville for a year, and then New York City, and I lived in New York City for almost 5 years. So it's kind of weird to close that chapter in the book on such a weird note, with obviously the world kind of just turning upside down in the past year. For me, it's all about forward momentum and family. Like, I have no family in New York. All of our friends have basically left. It was the awkwardness of like defending a place where, oh wait, okay, no one is actually here anymore. And turns out when you're kind of in the epicenter of a disaster happening, it can take a toll, right? And all of those things are valid, and it's just so weird to see people like shooting people down for moving, but then also saying that New York is dead forever, because that's not true. And those were kind of the things that I tried to state in my first video, but I didn't do the best job. So in terms of me personally, it's like a 100% personal decision, and things will be back in New York City. Obviously, it's gonna take longer than I thought. Maybe I was a little naive, I'll admit. I thought we were gonna bounce back in 6 months and everything was gonna be back to normal. Now we know that is not the case. So when I say forward momentum, well, let's actually go to another place for that. I already have some really cool projects in the work. This one is kind of random, but very exciting. This is gonna be a huge, awesome photo video studio, but also, hey, for small scale events maybe, you do have the option for some fresh air to get the air flowing, but I definitely should have filmed that audio when the garage doors were closed, but hey, everything's a work in progress here. Michael's gonna get to painting, but hopefully in the next few weeks.
It'll be done by the end of this week.
Oh. Okay.
Maybe Monday.
Okay.
I've been saying too many maybe Mondays lately.
Yeah. And then number two, family. I'm not just talking about my parents, grandparents, cousins, all of those people. My friends from high school and school, and my extracurricular activities that, there's history there, and it's so much easier to not only hop into those friendships again, but in terms of just satisfying my brain that always wants to hop on to new ideas, new business ventures. It's just, easier, not just being Texas, but being in an environment where I kind of have home team advantage from, if that makes sense, knowing people, having connections, and just coming from a place of confidence. And family also means, thinking about my future with John, my fiance. In terms of spilling the tea, this was something that I was going to just not share with everyone, but then at the same time, I'm like, why does this have to be a secret? Because it's gonna be a part of my life at some point down the line. I kind of already shared how I had a really rough time in 2020, along with, I'm sure, a lot of you. It's not unique, you're not alone. Panic attacks, pulling out huge clumps of hair in the shower and being like, oh, this is not normal, just stressing out to a degree that I have never experienced before. And when people talked about anxiety and anxiety attacks, I was just like, okay, that's just something you get over, right? Just get over it. And I think I understand that a little bit more now. But on top of all that, also, there was a time period of 2 hours where John and I thought that we were pregnant. In terms of those tests that you see that say 99.9% accurate, I guess we were just the 0.01% that was not accurate. So in the span of a couple hours, we just had to completely turn our life around, figure it out, what we want, where we want to be, who we want to be hanging out with, what business ventures to really take seriously and pursue, how are we going to do this, who do we want around us, and something like that is so significant, especially when you're just not planning it, right? For as long as I remember, I've wanted to be a mom. So this is something that I'm not scared of. It was just something that the timing was a little off. It wasn't expected. So that was the first time that we had to really logistically think about that. And John and I are both people who want that, but also love what we do for work, and we want to build things, and we want to build not just with ourselves but our future family, and figure out how to still keep a little space of ourselves. And when we started thinking about that, okay, New York is probably one of the hardest places to do that. Now, again, don't get too excitable over there because, well, I'm not pregnant and we're not having kids yet. And again, it's gonna be kind of a little bit off into the future. But it kind of just expedited that timeline, and it made us think of where we need to be and who we need to be around. And hence, all of my family's in Texas. The environment just makes sense for life right now, not just personally, but where the world's at. And already being here for just a few days, I already just feel a little bit more at peace with everything. And so no, I didn't stop posting for like 10 days, sorry about that, because I was having another 2020 level freak out. I'm trying to leave all of that behind in the previous year, but getting down to Texas, we decided to move during a crazy winter storm. And it took over a week to get here and figure out the logistics, and it was kind of a nightmare. But obviously I'm kind of back to posting, back to kind of normal. We're not gonna have my normal set and any normalcy probably until like end of March, so things will be a little bit more shot in random places with minimal gear here. So yeah, kind of feels like a relief to share that little nugget of information that I kind of left out when I talked to you guys previously. I don't know why I was scared to share about it. I mean, I don't share a lot of my personal life on the YouTubes that much, just because it does add some extra stress. But when it's something as big as that, and I definitely did try to glaze over this whole moving thing, because I wanted to just post up, start making videos, but then I started getting a lot of tweets and a lot of confusion as to what was happening. So hopefully this serves as like a, hey, everything's good. I'm excited to move forward. I got a lot of fun stuff that I'm looking forward to sharing about with you guys. Was that a complete sentence that I just said? I have no idea. That's probably a sign to wrap up this video. So when I started filming this, I thought this was going to be a Q&A because I just screenshotted like 30 really great questions from y'all. But turns out I've been yammering for a really long time. So maybe I'll save the proper Q&A for in a couple weeks, if that's okay with you, because I didn't realize that this would take me a long time to talk about and explain. Okay, as I was watching back this video, I had two thoughts. Number one, I think this past year, 2020, was tough for a lot of people. And I think no matter where you live, people are gonna have a weird relationship with where they were when the pandemic hit. I think it's that simple. I think a lot of people, it was traumatic, right? And especially for people who are kind of in the center of it. New York City got really scary. So, but I think regardless of where you were, I notice a lot of people moving right now. And I think people moving to New York City for a new start who have never lived there, I think those people are gonna have a great time because it can be new to them, right? And then number two, as I was also walking around that studio, we're investing a lot of money in order to fix it up, but in terms of the rent, it's the same rent that I paid for my tiny studio in New York City, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And I think with places like New York, LA, other big cities, is when you reach a point where, hey, you're far along in your career and you want to take that next step. I feel like the world kind of tells you that next step is investing in a home or, just taking the next step. It's impossible to do in a place like New York. So, these cities are an example of a place where if you're not uber rich, you can't participate in a lot of these things that normal people do to build their wealth, whether it is real estate or investing into other businesses. So I felt like that was interesting too. That kind of hit me today where I was like, man, I think for several years in New York, I always had these like dream places on Zillow, right? Where I was just like, okay, one day we can get that tiny condo that is $1.5 million. and then you step back and you're like, okay, that's not normal. That's really not normal. Anyways, gosh, I feel like that could be an entirely different video. Maybe I should react to my saved Zillow listings. Most boring video ever. Okay, see you guys later.